Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the Voynich Manuscript, the unbreakable code that has defied every expert. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. The Voynich Manuscript is a 240-page illustrated book written in a script that no one has ever deciphered. It contains drawings of plants that do not exist in nature, astronomical diagrams of celestial systems found nowhere else, and text in an alphabet with no known equivalent anywhere on Earth. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438. It has been examined by some of the finest analytical minds in history. The codebreakers who cracked the Enigma machine during the Second World War studied it. The National Security Agency examined it. Computational linguists fed it into early computers. Every attempt at decipherment has either failed outright or produced proposed translations that no other scholar could verify. The manuscript sits in Yale's Beinecke library, fully digitized and available to anyone on Earth. Millions of people have looked at it. After 6 centuries, not a single word has been confirmed. What is it saying? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The official story of technological progress follows a reassuring arc. Stone tools giving way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel, and finally, the Industrial Revolution catapulting humanity into the modern age. In this narrative, each generation inherits a slightly more sophisticated toolkit than the last, and no knowledge is ever truly lost. It is a comfortable story. It is also, in key respects, demonstrably false. History is littered with technological achievements that appeared centuries before their supposed invention, vanished after the cultures that created them collapsed, and were reinvented, often with great difficulty, by later civilizations who had no idea the knowledge had ever existed. Roman concrete was stronger and more durable than most modern concrete, and was not matched again until the 21st century. Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that protected the Byzantine Empire for centuries, has never been fully reproduced. Damascus steel, capable of holding an edge that modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, disappeared with the craftsmen who made it. These are not myths. They are documented historical losses of genuine technical knowledge. When we encounter an object from the ancient world that should not exist, a battery from Baghdad dated to the Parthian era, a computing mechanism salvaged from an ancient shipwreck, a map showing geographical features that were not officially discovered for another millennium, the temptation is to dismiss it as misidentified or misstated. That dismissal is sometimes warranted. But when such objects accumulate, when the pattern becomes too consistent to ignore, the honest response is to ask whether our model of ancient capability is simply wrong. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Voynich Manuscript. The unbreakable code that has defied every expert is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The manuscript was purchased in 1912 by antiquarian book dealer Wilfrid Voynich from the Villa Mondragon near Rome. Voynich believed it was a cipher manuscript of great scientific significance and spent the remainder of his life attempting to have it decoded. Radiocarbon dating conducted by the University of Arizona in 2009 confirmed the parchment dates to between 1404 and 1438 AD. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the text comprises approximately 170,000 individual glyphs arranged in 25 to 30 unique characters, none of which match any known historical alphabet or writing system. The glyphs are written left to right in what appear to be words, with consistent spacing and word length distributions, creating a strong visual impression of genuine linguistic content. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The manuscript contains at least 6 distinct sections identified by their illustrations: herbal, astronomical, biological, cosmological, pharmaceutical, and what researchers call the recipes section. Each section uses a somewhat different vocabulary profile, suggesting either different topics or different authorial voices within a single coherent system. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, around 1600, Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph Roman II reputedly purchased the manuscript for 600 gold ducats, an enormous sum indicating it was considered extremely valuable. It then passed through a series of owners, including the Jesuit Athanasius Kircher, who received letters about it from scholars begging him to attempt a translation, before eventually reaching Voynich. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of statistical analysis of the Voynich text reveals that it follows Zipf's law, the same mathematical relationship between word frequency and word rank found in all natural human languages. This is considered strong evidence that the text encodes meaningful content rather than random letter combinations, though it cannot prove the content is a natural language rather than a sophisticated constructed cipher. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: the plants illustrated in the herbal section do not correspond to any known botanical species, yet they display consistent structural logic. Roots, stems, leaves, and flowers are rendered in a manner showing genuine botanical knowledge. Some researchers have proposed they represent fantastical or alchemical plants. Others suggest they are stylized depictions of real species rendered according to an unfamiliar illustrative tradition. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Voynich Manuscript, the unbreakable code that has defied every expert. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that artificial language or sophisticated cipher, the most widely held academic position, is that the Voynich text encodes a real language or message through a systematic cipher, possibly a nomenclator or polyalphabetic substitution of the type common in 15th century European diplomacy. The challenge is that no proposed key has produced coherent output that other scholars can independently verify or extend. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Gordon Rugg's Cardin Grill hoax hypothesis. Rugg demonstrated in 2004 that the Voynich text's statistical properties could be replicated by using a Cardin Grill, a card with holes cut in it, moved across a table of syllables, generating pseudo-linguistic but meaningless text. His argument is that a skilled forger could have produced the entire manuscript to sell to a credulous buyer such as Rudolf Roman II, though the sustained effort required makes this explanation logistically difficult. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that forgotten natural language hypothesis. Some linguists argue the manuscript represents a genuine but extinct or extremely marginal language written in a purpose-built phonetic script, analogous to how some historical missionaries devised new scripts for oral languages. The challenge is that no proposed natural language identification, including Nicholas Gibbs's Latin abbreviations claim in 2017 and the Canadian AI team's Hebrew hypothesis in 2019, has produced translations accepted by mainstream scholarship. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Voynich Manuscript, the unbreakable code that has defied every expert, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence, as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the word-level statistical structure of Voynich text, including Zipf's law conformance, and the differential vocabulary distribution across sections, is consistent with natural language encoding rather than random generation. Information theoretic analysis by Jorge Stolfi and others has shown the text contains conditional entropy patterns typical of inflected human languages, which are extremely difficult to produce by hand without genuine linguistic content. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the manuscript's 6 sections each display different vocabulary profiles. Words common in the herbal section are rare in the astronomical section, and vice versa. This structural organization mirrors genuine encyclopedic texts of the period and is very difficult to explain as a hoax, since a forger creating meaningless text would have little incentive to maintain such consistent internal compartmentalization. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed carbon dating confirms the parchment is genuinely early 15th century, eliminating the possibility of a post-Renaissance forgery. The binding and ink composition are also consistent with the period. Whatever the manuscript's content, it is not a modern hoax. It is a genuine medieval artifact that someone spent considerable time and expense producing. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Voynich Manuscript, the unbreakable code that has defied every expert. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Gerard Cheshire's 2019 claimed to have identified the Voynich text as Proto-Romance language was rejected by linguists within days of publication. A 2019 Canadian computational study suggesting Hebrew as the underlying language received a similarly skeptical reception. The Yale Beinecke library digitized the entire manuscript in high resolution and made it freely available online, enabling a global community of researchers to work on it simultaneously. AI-based analysis has added statistical rigor to the study without producing a breakthrough. No decipherment has been accepted by the scholarly community. The manuscript remains the most studied undeciphered text in the world, and interest shows no sign of diminishing. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis. And the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Voynich Manuscript, the unbreakable code that has defied every expert, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Voynich Manuscript ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.